At the end of March 2022, Kate and William became victims of Meghan and Harry's fevered self-promotion. Within hours of arriving in Jamaica, the second stop during an 8-visit tour to the Caribbean, anti-British sentiment wrecked their goodwill tour. Neither had been adequately warned that Meghan Markle's message about the royal family's racism was ingrained across the region. Truly, I'm not surprised, actually, because we've talked about this before. I think they need to get some people up in that palace who can let everyone know what the cultural temperature is. It is a shame that they would have sent William and Catherine to the Caribbean knowing full well, or they could have known full well, that it was not going to be a welcome reception, and that it was going to be an embarrassment from start to finish for the two of them. Not because they had done anything wrong, but because the entire region was ensconced in this lie that the British royal family was a bunch of vicious racists. They had believed Meghan Markle's lies. It is easier to pretend that we've never been able to get ahead and that, some of our countries are a hot mess, all because of colonialism. And it's always easier to play the victim, because then you can be like, well, that's the reason I haven't had a chance to get on my feet yet. It's because I've been victimized. I've gotten kicked in the face so continually. I'm like in the middle of a concussion right now. It's like it's so much easier to be a victim than to be somebody who has personal accountability. So these Caribbean nations are wanting to say, we hate the Queen. We've always hated the Queen, and it's because of her that we can't seem to get on our feet. So when William and Catherine come to do this goodwill tour, it's a nightmare. It had been planned for months as a celebration of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, and the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge's tour was focused on 3 Commonwealth countries, Belize, Jamaica, and the Bahamas. Also, all very poor countries, okay? If it weren't for the tourism industry, God knows where they'd be. And the monarch remained the head of the state. To the Cambridge's misfortune, their senior advisors in Kensington Palace, the British Foreign Office, and the British High Commissions in Jamaica had failed to grasp some feelings of hostility toward the British. No one had reported to the palace the consequences of Meghan's sermons, namely that the Commonwealth was a relic of white colonialism and that the royal family lacked sympathy for the descendants of slaves. Meghan's enunciation of the royal family fueled existing demands for reparations from Britain for slavery, and the anti-monarchists' protest that their countries should become republics. British officials had dropped the unwary Cambridges, the future hope of the monarchy, into the crossfire. Now, I think it was an unfortunate situation for William and Catherine. The world loves them. And I think that the world would never look at William and Catherine as some kind of nexus for hatred and hostility and racism. So, to believe that any negative experience that they faced on those islands was going to have some kind of lasting effect, I think is to really misjudge how much the world really likes those two. At the same time, to have dropped those two in that environment without a warning is inexplicable. How could they not have known that these were the feelings? See, and so I want to say that Meghan often came out and said, the palace is uninformed about the way the world works. For her purposes, I would say that is an incorrect statement. Because I think that she meant something very different than what I mean. But what I mean is, I do think that they lack the ability to gauge the temperature. I think they lack the ability to protect against the reality of people's emotional instability, right? So I think it's just sort of like, and I could be completely wrong, but I think it's just sort of like, well, we'll just ignore it, and then it's not really a real thing. Because it's not true. We're not racist, so we're not going to play into these people's idea that we are, so we won't acknowledge it. But I think that's really a miscalculation. I don't think you need to go in and announce and be like, now we just want to let you guys know that we're not racist. I don't think you even need to bring it up, but I think that you need to have a plan in case questions come up, in case William and Catherine find themselves in a very heated conversation with somebody. They will have been cued to answer these questions or these allegations with really well-tailored answers. It doesn't look like William and Catherine were set up for success in a hostile environment. They weren't even given the idea that it could have been a hostile environment. They found themselves in a really uncomfortable position when the Prime Minister of Jamaica, Andrew Holness, decided to corner them and it was on TV, and it was like sort of like this show trial where the poor Cambridges were standing there, marooned like school children, compelled to listen to Holness berate the British monarchy to promote his Republican agenda and political ambitions. The Cambridges' discomfort became worse after William, wearing a white dress uniform adorned with military medals, took the salute in an open-topped Land Rover. The visual was really negative for the people in Jamaica. They felt like this was exactly what they'd already said was true. Here comes a colonist riding around in his Land Rover, military uniform. It gave the wrong signals. It gave the wrong visuals. And that's what I'm saying. I don't think there's anything wrong with him wearing his military uniform, right? I don't think there's anything wrong with that in and of itself. But in this country, probably not the best look if you want to let these people know we're not trying to lord over you, right? And I think that had William and the palace taken it seriously, that people had feelings, that would have been a visual that they would not have placed in front of the people, right? So, no, you don't need to come out swinging and be like, we're not racist, we promise we're not racist. But, like, avoid the things that would only help further these people's narrative. The crisis climaxed after William made an abject apology for slavery. See, but this is all he could have done, given the fact that he hadn't been told what to say or what to do. Of course, he's feeling the pressure of everybody's anger, so he's thinking in the moment, okay, I'll just say I'm sorry. I'm sorry that our country did this a long time ago. I'm sorry for something I'm actually not responsible for. He didn't say that part, but I mean, that's the truth. His words irritated most Britons and failed to satisfy those Jamaicans who disapproved of the visit. And that's what always happens when you apologize for something you didn't do, because there's going to be your defenders who are like, well, why would you say that? You didn't do anything wrong. And then there's going to be the people who are already angry, who were angry in the first place for something that wasn't your fault. So you could never say anything to make it better because it's irrational why they're upset. No one's ever happy when you apologize for something you didn't do. William failed to follow the Queen's example on his return home and foolishly issued an embarrassing statement acknowledging that the Commonwealth's fate should be reconsidered. He should have just been quiet about it, and it would have blown over, because it did blow over. Like, none of us are still sitting around being like, what were you guys thinking? You know, why was Kate in those expensive clothes and glittering jewels, and you were in a white military uniform? Like, nobody even cares what they did, you know? And truly, most things will blow over if you just shut up. Now, of course, Harry and Meghan were over there in the shadows giggling and high-fiving each other over the problems that Catherine and William had faced. The opprobrium heaped on the Cambridges was inflamed by the memoirs of Harry's acclaimed visit to Jamaica in 2012 and by the Sussexes' successful and informal tour of South Africa in September of 2019. So Harry and Meghan liked to think that they were ultimately the people's prince and princess, because look how they had been warmly welcomed in the same places where William and Catherine couldn't be safe to walk. In the aftermath, many speculated that royal visits and even the monarchy itself were relics. Wounded by the criticism, William appeared like a lost soul. By contrast, the savvy Sussexes were trampling on what remained of the Cambridges' pristine reputation. See, either I just don't really recall this because I wasn't paying close attention, or I think that Tom Bower is really making a mountain out of a molehill. Like, I just don't even recall everybody being angry about this. And if I recall it at all, it's like with the vaguest of memories. I think that everything is blown out of proportion in these last chapters, honestly, because he doesn't know how the story is going to end. And so his fear is coloring the reality of the facts. I think he was afraid that William, and I say afraid, but I wouldn't even say that Tom Bower seems like he's all that much of a monarchist. Because he does such a good bit of criticizing of those who have been in charge. But maybe he's just trying to be an honest person. But I would say that his fear of Meghan's retribution and revenge is it's a little bit overemphasized. And I think this is a perfect example of that. Because he doesn't know how it's going to work out. We have the benefit of hindsight. We can see, well, none of this ended up being a big deal at all. But you can feel the fear about Harry's upcoming memoir. Bower had no idea what was going to be in that book. We know it was in that book. The book was nothing. The book was absolutely nothing to worry about. But there's so much dread in these last chapters that it's nice to read and know it all worked out. It's no big thing.